And welcome back to Joe and Josh Talks Live. And today we're going to be talking to you about the one of the historic events that went on this past weekend, UFC 205. And Josh, man, what a historic card that was.
Historic indeed, man. The first ever UFC card to take place in New York City and New York State. Um, the UFC has been trying for a long time to get an event in New York to get the MMA ban lifted, and it took a lot of work. And some people were saying that the new owners kind of helped out. Some people were saying that Dana being persistent with his efforts helped out. Some people saying it's a combination of the two, man. But in any case, it was a great card, multiple championship fights, and had an attendance of 20,427 people and a total gate of 17,700,000.
Yeah. So that's huge.
Yeah,
Huge. Just for being the first event ever held in New York City and stuff. I mean, it was a great way. I mean, they finally, like you said, they've been fighting for it. They finally got it, and well, it paid off for them, like big time.
yeah, it just shows that the UFC is still growing, man. They're still, expanding. I mean, I can still remember. I know you can still remember when they first got the TV deal on Spike, and we were watching Griffin versus Bonner, and it's hard to believe that we went from that the humble beginnings to now having cards in New York, and they've got the deal with Fox Sports One, and I think they just got new owners, so I think it's just gonna keep getting bigger from here on out.
Yeah, man, most definitely. I mean, mixed martial arts is a growing sport. It has been. I mean, UFC's been around since the early '90s, and look where it's at today. Is a benchmark entertainment business. I mean, and it's one of the most popular sports in the world, and so it's been exciting to watch this journey, see how far it's come, and I love it, and I cannot wait to see more amazing fights, more great moments, more legends to be made.
Absolutely. And to start off on the main card here, we had Raquel Pennington getting a unanimous decision victory over Misha Tate, and kind of a bit of sad news. After this fight, Misha did announce her retirement from MMA, and I have to say, man, it was kind of a bittersweet moment. I'm really sad to see her go, but I am happy that she was able to get the title, before retiring, because after she had the losses to Ronda, everybody was thinking she'll never have a title run, and then when she managed to beat Holly, it was huge. It was kind of just a beautiful moment for her career, and big thanks to her for all she contributed to the sport and especially to the women's bantamweight division.
Most definitely, and she had a good career, man. So she went out, with a good rapport. So, hats off to her, and wish her well, man.
Absolutely, and keeping along with the trend of women's MMA, we have Joanna, the strawweight champ, retaining her title by unanimous decision. Really good fight, man. And Carolina had a good performance, but Joanna, she's just something else, man. Good performance all around. Thought it was a really great fight, nice pace, good game plan. Loved it.
Yeah, it's like women. I don't know. They bring like a certain aspect to MMA that's, I mean, granted, you see it on the men's side, but when you watch the women fight, especially these, they just bring a whole different level of energy. I mean, them girls, man, they are quick. You know, they're, they're hungry. They get in there, they go at it, man. They just don't care. I don't know, man. It's just I really do enjoy the women's bouts just as much as I do the guys, man. I mean,
Absolutely, man.
they're great.
Absolutely. And speaking of being competitive and having that kind of competitive energy, we had a great middleweight bout between Yoel Romero and Chris Weidman. Was kind of even. I kind of had it at 1-1 going into the third, and really going into this fight, I didn't know who would win. I was kind of leaning toward Yoel, but the way he managed to win this fight, Chris ended up shooting for a takedown from the outside, kind of far, didn't really set it up with his hands, and Yoel just lands an amazing flying knee. And this was one of those fights where you see a move and it's like Shoney Carter's spinning back fist or Gonzaga's head kick on Crow Cop, or all these other
Right.
great knockouts we've seen over the years. You know that's going to be on a highlight reel. And hats off to Yoel, man. He is something special.
Yeah, most definitely, man. Um, the I've seen a little bit like in Chris Weidman, man. I don't know. Have you seen a difference like between like a couple years ago when he was the champ now to now? You know, it's kind of like I don't know, man. Like as these bouts come his way, I mean, it. Granted, don't get me wrong, he's still a contender, but I think he's kind of losing a little bit of steam as he goes.
Yeah,
You know what I
it
mean?
it kind of seemed like to me that in his earlier bouts, his cardio was a bit better. He was a bit better at putting things together, like we were talking about, setting up things with his hands. Granted, in the Machida fight, and that was one where people could very easily make a case that Machida was past his prime. Same with Vitor. He beat those guys, but those guys were getting their shots in. Um,
Right.
when Chris did have the fight with Luke, he was never really out of that fight until the third. They were kind of going back and forth, but that was the first time we ever really saw him get in trouble. And to see him kind of get dominated at the end of the third and going into the fourth in that fight, it kind of in a way removed that aura of invincibility that he had. Because for him to have two wins over Anderson Silva, who many people consider to be the best pound for pound fighter of all time, had a lot of people thinking, well, is this guy the best pound for pound fighter of all time? But the middleweight division in the UFC is so stacked. It's so incredible. You have so many great fighters there, and hats off to Yoel for getting that victory. And I don't know for sure, but I'm guessing that's going to set up Yoel versus Bisbing, which is going to be a great fight, man. And
Hmm.
I would bet on Yoel again in that fight.
Yeah, man. I think Bisping is matching that most definitely. Um, just some exciting stuff that's going on. You know, in the UFC. I mean, they're trying to build cards. You know, try to make blockbuster cards and stuff like that, and they're doing a good job. And that will definitely be a great matchup for sure.
Absolutely.
Hmm.
And moving to the welterweight division, this was the second of three title fights on this main card. Um, Tyrone Woodley and Stephen Thompson fought to a majority draw, and this is kind of a rare occurrence in the UFC. And anytime you have a draw like this, there's always controversy about MMA's scoring system, and a lot of people were talking about, well, with the new owners and everything, is this scoring system going to be updated? How will the commissions factor into that? And all the things they would have to go through to get that change. Because when you do have a draw like this, especially for a title on a big card, it can be very frustrating. But I don't know, man. They both fought their heart out. I can't fault either one for the decision. It was a little bit funny when Bruce Buffer had a Steve Harvey moment and made the wrong announcement. That was pretty funny. But I don't know, man. I think that welterweight is kind of one of those divisions, just like middleweight, where you have so many competitors in there that are very evenly matched. That when they fight each other, you know
Right.
anybody could beat anybody on a given night. It could be a draw on any given night, like we saw.
Yep.
And I don't know if we're getting an immediate rematch because there's been some talk about Tyrone fighting other people, but
Right.
it was still a great fight nonetheless. I tip my hat to both guys. Of course, everybody loves seeing a decisive finish, even if it is a decision, and a draw is never something that anyone wants to see. But it happens.
Yeah, man. Eventually, do get them draws, and if it's I guess if a draw needs to come to a draw, let it be, but don't make it a draw just because, I've seen stupid draws myself, man, and I've been upset over that. But if those guys are in there, they're giving it all they got, and you're a judge. I mean, come on, let's be in their shoes.
Yeah,
So, but yeah, all right, man. What's next on? I think we got
you
what a
got the
couple
main
more
event, man.
matches. We got the main event of the evening.
And this was, we talked about this being a historic card. This was a historic fight. This was champion versus champion.
Hmm.
And traditionally, the UFC had stayed away from these types of fights in the past. We saw BJ Penn win titles in two different weight classes at different times. We saw Randy Couture do the same thing. But this was champion versus champion. The featherweight champion, Conor McGregor, taking on Eddie Alvarez for Eddie's lightweight championship, and Conor McGregor wins by TKO in round two in what was a dominating performance, man.
Yeah, a most dominant performance by Conor McGregor. I mean, just put Alvarez had no chance
Yeah,
whatsoever. I mean, he was just outmatched in everything. And I only took that counter lift to hit one time,
Yeah,
and like we were talking about, he was like, "Uh oh, that hurt," and
yeah.
he was in trouble from then on out.
And I think that people talk about Connor's style of trash talking, and a lot of people are talking about he gets into people's head too. And I think that one thing that does surprise a lot of his opponents is that even though he is a notorious trash talker, he can back it up.
Right, right.
Like we saw with Aldo, like we saw in the Diaz rematch, and like we saw here with Alvarez. McGregor just has such great striking, and especially his counter striking. You know, precise and accurate, very fast, and I think it was either 5 or 6 times that he dropped Eddie in 2 rounds. And hats
Yeah,
off to Eddie, man. He's never been one to have a weak chin. The first few times he got knocked down, he was popping right back up. But like we said, it only got worse as the fight went on, man.
yeah,
And as soon as he got clipped a couple times, especially with that left hand, you could see the fear in his eyes, realizing that maybe not necessarily that he underestimated this guy, but like the old saying goes, I think it was Mike Tyson that said it. Everybody has a game plan until they get hit, and
right.
once you get really rattled like that, there's sometimes you can recover, sometimes you can't. So hats off to Eddie for taking this fight because it's really great that we can see a champion versus champion fight, man. And Conor McGregor has made history, and now I think he's asking for like stake in the UFC or something next.
Yeah, stake in the UFC, why not, man? I mean, the guy, he not only is a good fight promoter, but he can back up what he says too. So, um, overall great fight, made history, and it was one of the best, pay-per-views of all time. So,
Yeah, absolutely. And the fight of the night went to Tyron Woodley and Stephen Thompson, which, like we said, even though it was a draw, was a great fight. And Yoel and Connor both got awarded the performance of the night. So, hats off to those guys. It was just an incredible, incredible event all around.
absolutely. And any final comments that you want to make, man, before we let the viewers go?
Yeah, I think that this card shows that the UFC can really outdo themselves because this gate broke the UFC 129 record, which
Right.
was the also the venues record, and of course, like we said, McGregor becoming the first fighter in the UFC to hold two titles at the same time. So just a historic night all around, man. Great fighters, had some great performances, some highlight reel finishes. One fighter said goodbye. Two fighters obviously have unfinished business they're going back to. So just a great card all around, man. I loved it.
Yeah, man, most definitely. And well, this is going to do it for me and Josh on Joe and Josh Talks Live. We'll be back with more MMA, UFC talk on, I guess, 206, UFC 206. And we will see you guys then.
See you later, guys.